this on? Oh yes, it is. Great, you guys were all chattering and that's wonderful. My name is Catherine Earle, I'm the CEO of SACOSS. SACOSS is the peak body for the health and community services sector, and we have a mission to end poverty and disadvantage in South Australia, so that's certainly our interest here today. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting here on the lands of the Kaurna people and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'd like to acknowledge our really important partners here today. We have a community sector partner, which is Uniting Communities, and we have our media partner, InDaily, and you'll hear from them in the program. Thank you all for being here. Just if you need bathrooms, they're straight out the back and someone will help you. And if there's the need for an evacuation, please follow instruction, but I think we just follow the lit up doorways to exit. I'm going to hand over now to Luke Wilson, who's here to welcome us to country. Thank you.
Anari Luke Kurika Wilson, na Ghana Natangini Ranga Aranda Nadru Mio, Matawichana Lumirna, na Wangati, Martin the Bodni Gani Ardana, Komatani Yachumirna. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, thanks for having me here this morning. It's always a great privilege when we get the opportunity to share our culture and share our language, and just want to talk a little bit about journey. My journey with Kumakaro means one blood, for those of you that don't know. We're a Ghana culture service here in South Australia. Our journey's probably stemmed back to about 20 years ago. We just started out as a small little dance group with the idea and the vision of creating more opportunities to revive Ghana language and culture. So it's really allowed us to reconnect with our family and with our culture and our language, so we're truly grateful for that. And on behalf of Kumakaro, we've got to thank everybody in the room for joining on that journey with us now. So you're all officially a part of that, and we're truly grateful again. So like I said, my name's Luke Wilson. Kurika's my totem. Kurika means magpie, so it's important that I acknowledge my role and my responsibility and the connection to our totems. And I also want to extend the welcome to all other Aboriginal people here in the room, and pay my respects to their culture and their customs and beliefs, as well as they are different to mine and my family. So look, I also want to acknowledge and welcome all backgrounds and cultures and religions from all over the world. Growing up in a very diverse community, I think it's important that we continue to invite each other in and share this journey together. So look, I'm a proud Ghana man. Sorry, my throat's a bit. I'm a proud Ghana man from here in Adelaide Plains, also Nuttinjetty down the Lower Lakes, to the Coorong, Naranga over on the York Peninsula, Nudgee in the Barossa Valley, and Aranda up in the Alice Springs region. As I said, on behalf of my family, on behalf of Kumakaro and all Ghana people, I'd like to welcome everybody here today, and I hope it's a successful event. No chalia. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke, for sharing with us culture and custom this morning. So we're really pleased to see so many people take the time out this morning to come and join us. The focus of this forum is on the Legislative Council, as you all probably know. And I just wanted to say a few things about why the Legislative Council is so important and interesting to us in this election. So the Legislative Council has a really important role, obviously, in passing legislation, in amending legislation, or holding up legislation. And so it has a really critical influence on how the government governs in that way. But it's also a place where there's scrutiny and there's discussion and debate, and it's where the concerns of our sector and our interests can be voiced. And I'd like to thank many of the panellists here today for being some of those representatives and bringing those voices and critical issues forward. It's also really interesting this time round because we have 4 seats available. And so, we could see a very different Legislative Council next time round. Now, I could go on and on about the Legislative Council and our interest in it, and I won't. But if you are interested in reading a bit more about SACOSS's interest in it. We have had a piece published by Dr. Greg Ogle in the Law Society Bulletin, which is available to anyone on the Law Society's webpage. So I'd suggest you go read that if you're interested in the in-depth take. So I'd like to acknowledge that there are many parties and candidates contesting this election. And unfortunately, we can't have them all up on stage. We would need a much larger stage and probably many more hours of the day. So we had to think about, who we would invite to participate in this forum. And, as a kind of independent charity, we can't just pick our favourites or our friends. So we needed to have a really kind of robust thinking around who's going to participate today. And we, so I wanted to address that, we haven't invited One Nation today, and it does look like they might be elected, but they aren't currently in Parliament, which was the rationale that we had. So we wanted to bring forward candidates who already had representation in our upper house, so we could talk to the parties that are there that we already have been working with and been hearing from. So, and there are many, many parties that would have liked to have been up on this stage today, and it's really unfortunate we can't do it all. The other consideration that we had was that we want this forum to have a really robust debate. We want to hear different views from all of the panellists, but we also want to make sure that this is a safe space that doesn't denigrate or undermine the people that our sector supports and cares about. And we're very confident that the people that we've invited here today can have that kind of discussion and debate that we're looking for. So again, I'd like to thank the panellists for making time in their busy election schedules to come and talk to us about the issues that we care about and to talk to the priorities of our sector. And with that, I want to hand over to our facilitator, Belinda Willis, editor of InDaily, which is an incredibly valuable source of local news. So we're really grateful to partner with InDaily today.
Well, hello, it's wonderful to see you all here today. As mentioned, I'm the editor of InDaily and feel very committed to the importance of democracy in our state, and it is wonderful to see that you are all part of that discussion and that you want to be informed about what's important and who you want represented in this state. I'm also here to quiz our wonderful panel members, who I thank very much for coming today. The Newspack is very busy, particularly chasing Peter Malinowskis and Ashton Hearn around the state at the moment, and various other, I think there's been some national guests fly in. I think Angus Taylor's here, there's a lot of other people from Canberra coming in. But to me, it is not often that the media spotlight shines on our Legislative Council, the vital upper house of review that scrutinises the government's legislation. This election, half of the Legislative Council's 22 seats are up for grabs, and those who manage to win a spot sit in that seat for 8 years, so vote carefully. Today we will help you decide how you want to vote by asking some of those key candidates how they will best champion South Australia's most vulnerable and the vital services that support them. So I'd like to now invite to the stage our panellists, Kyam Maher, who's a Labor Upper House member. He's also, well, up until now, been Deputy Premier, Attorney General, and his portfolios include Aboriginal Affairs and Industrial Relations. Connie Bonaros from SA Best. Tammy Franks, formerly with the Greens and now running as an independent in this election. Michelle Lensink from the Liberal Party, who's Shadow Minister for Human Services, Housing, Women and Prevention of Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence up until now, has been caught up at another event and she'll be here shortly, and we'll whisk her onto the stage. Melanie Selwood, who is the lead candidate for the Greens in South Australia, and McDermott, who is the candidate for Sarah Gaines' Fair Go for Australians party. of all, just to let you know the plan for today, each panel member will be asked to make a 2-minute opening statement. Then that will be followed with a few questions to all the respondents, who then have 90 seconds to respond. And we will do a rapid fire question before we have just a very quick break. After the break, there's questions from the audience. Now that has been managed by people registering early and submitting their questions in advance. So we will work through them, and if time permits, we can throw it open to the floor. Audience questions will be directed to a particular panel member who has 1 minute to answer. Pretty tough compared to the rules in Parliament House, I'd imagine. For the audience questions segment, all of our panel members have been issued with an intervention card. If someone wants to just wave their card for me. That means if they want to, they can throw that in the air and make a 30-second response to that question that was directed to someone else. We'll finish with a quick fire response round. Definitely a question without notice. And for each part of today, Greg, our timekeeper down here, that I need to let you know, used to be a soccer referee, so he's very strict. He'll give them, when there's 30 seconds left for their answer, he's going to hold up a yellow card. And if their time expired, they are going to get the red card. He's going in hard. So let's start with our 2-minute statements from each panel member. For those who are currently in the upper house, what is the thing you are personally most proud of achieving in your time in the upper house? And for those who are looking to be in the upper house, what's the biggest thing you personally hope to achieve if you're elected? And we'll kick off with you, Kyam.
Thank you very much. Is that on? Can everyone hear? Fine. 2 things in my time in the upper house that I'm most proud of. During not this term, the last term of Parliament from opposition, I was the 17th person to introduce voluntary assisted dying legislation, and sort of was the lucky person that the music stopped and I got my chair and it passed that time. And I think it was an amazing thing to be involved in something that so personally has touched so many people's lives. 500 South Australians and their families already, and I think will be one of the biggest contributions that I've been fortunate to be involved in. And then probably the other thing in my decade in Parliament this term was the legislating and the first elections for the First Nations voice to Parliament. Again, I think something that will create a very fundamental change in South Australia. Having the most disadvantaged group of South Australians who've been here by far the longest, having an advisory body where the government has to listen to their voices, acting on the advice and creating policies for the people that are directly affected by them.
Thank you for that, Kyam. Connie?
Good morning, everybody. There's lots of things I'm extraordinarily proud of in terms of what we've achieved in the upper house. The union merger and the Women's and Children's Hospital are 2 that I'm particularly pleased with. And I know the university merger was hugely contentious, but $60 million of additional funding was what I was able to, exploit out of the government for low SES students in our regional areas. That money will be held in perpetuity. Every year we will expect the number of students who will have access to a university education, children who never could have dreamed of going to university before because their families couldn't afford it, and we expect that number to grow by about 150 a year. Philanthropic money will also be added to that same fund. That is how you ensure that kids who dream of going to university but whose families can't afford to send them to go to university get there. The university also signed off on an MOU with me and the government and the Parliament of South Australia, which means that they will also offer a bursary to kids from Year 10 onwards. So the idea is to make sure that those kids can actually have the time, rather than working at McDonald's or Hungry Jack's, to study in Year 10 and be filtered towards those areas of concern, that study that they are interested in, and make their way to university. I think that's a pretty extraordinary outcome for kids who dream of going to university but wouldn't otherwise have the chance. Greg's showing me the 30 seconds.
Really
The Women's and
distracting.
Children's Hospital, also hugely contentious. And that's where I play my role in the centre of politics. But the most important thing about that hospital for me was ensuring that the experts, the medicos and the professionals, the doctors who know what happens on the ground are actually involved in the design and build of that Women's and Children's Hospital, and I'm extraordinarily proud of that.
Thanks so much, Connie. Michelle, I understand you're caught up with some election campaigning, so thank you very much for joining us. Just a quick explanation for you. We're just in the midst of having 2 minutes per person to talk about what you're most proud of that you achieved in your time so far in the upper house. And also we've got Greg over here with his timing. He's going to give you, you've been briefed. Fantastic, thanks so much. Tammy, would you like to go next?
Hi, Tammy Franks, independent in the upper house, previously Greens. I think it's like choosing children. You can't possibly pick just one, particularly when there's a lot of them. I can see my old boss, Jeff Harris, up there, and in fact my first bill that I got through the Parliament was to protect families of those with mental ill health, where they sought safe harbour, who were looking at being criminalised and in fact imprisoned should those family members come to them for help. That was extraordinary, and criminalising carers is probably the thing I remain the most proud of because it was the first one I did. Getting rid of gay panic defence, ensuring we have abortion care as health care, making sure that when you are a co-parent, you are on the birth certificate of your child, no matter if you're a rainbow family or a heteronormative family. But I think the one that I'll pick the most today is actually cancer compensation and presumptive recognition for firefighters, because smoke and carcinogens don't differentiate between whether or not you're a CFS volunteer as a firefighter or whether you're an MFS volunteer as a firefighter, and I'm proudest that I stood and fought for those volunteer firefighters to get the workers' comp that they deserve when they're in fact literally dying.
Thank you, Tammy. Melanie.
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Melanie. I'm running for the Greens at the state election. One of the things I'd really love to achieve in this term of Parliament is a human rights charter. I think this is something that will have wide-reaching consequences throughout a number of sectors. I think a number of other states that have human rights charters have shown that this can really have an impact in helping people in their daily lives. It can help agencies make clear decisions, and it is a really good exercise for us to come up with a shared set of values that we believe in as a state. So I would really like to see a human rights charter. The Greens have been knocking on thousands of doors already so far this election, and we do hear 2 clear messages coming from people. The first is that they feel like they've got a distrust of our political institutions to actually solve their problems. So I think we have a lot of work to do to rebuild that trust, and that's going to take a lot of working together and looking at what we can do better moving forward in the future. The other thing we hear mostly from people is that they are struggling to make ends meet. So we do need to keep our eye on the prize around looking after the cost of living. So the Greens do want to make sure that we have a rent control that's in line with CPI so that rents aren't getting out of control. We want to make sure we're building more public housing. So the Labor government have built 483 public homes this term of government, while the public housing wait list is at 14,000 people. So we really want to see more public homes built, and we want to bring energy back into public hands. So there's a number of things that we want to work on, and at the same time we don't want to take our eye off climate change, because we do believe that is the biggest threat that is facing all of us, and it interacts with all of the other issues that we're dealing with. So that's just a snapshot of some of the things we'd like to work on.
Great, thank you for that. Michelle.
Yes, thank you. Sorry I had a diary malfunction this morning. It's entirely my own fault because I'm managing my own diary. I'm a bit like Tammy. It is like, for me, it's a bit like choosing between your favourite children. And of course I had an opportunity during the Marshall Liberal government to be the Minister for Human Services. So I've got quite a little list from domestic and family violence services, additional services that we're able to provide, record funding, which clearly post-Royal Commission, we know we need a lot more support for those services, particularly the crisis, but we were trying to move services from the crisis end into more of the preventative space, We implemented the domestic violence disclosure scheme. We provided specific housing for people in crisis to be able to flee immediately, and we wanted to expand those. That wasn't expanded under the current government, and we wanted to get people out of the hotel-motel system. In the youth justice space, along with upper house colleagues, we banned spithoods, and we also were in the process of shifting the services there to have a therapeutic approach rather than a punitive approach, because there's a lot of the young people there have got dysregulation issues, a whole lot of trauma. In the homelessness and the public housing space, the Public Housing Trust waitlist went down significantly under us, particularly the Category 1 waitlist, which is for homeless people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. We reformed homelessness services, and we also, DHS took on the role of pre-statutory families before removal, so that they would get therapeutic supports with the intention of making every effort to try and keep children with their families rather than taking them into care. And also a lot of LGBTIQ advocacy. I've been an ally for many, many years, and my time is up.
Well done, Michelle. Thank you. Chris.
Thank you very much. I hope you don't mind if I stand. I'm just I'm a stander when I talk, and I'm a wanderer, so excuse me. I'm the odd kid out in the classroom. It's been sort of well documented, and I say it from the very start, I am not a politician. I'm a 62-year-old that's lived a life in South Australia, that's not potted from the cheap seats, but have had an opinion, and I've been in and around this world for almost 40 years, either through football or through media, and through 30 years with Little Heroes Foundation. I've been blessed to meet and discuss issues with a variety of people, and I guess it's given me some intel of what they can do, and then a lot of intel from the man on the street about what's not getting done, and that it's not fair. And the Fair Go Party was born under Sarah Game, and I'd known Sarah for quite a while, and was more than happy to support her in a field that I always confess I've got no experience in. But I love getting around the state. I've been able to get to Port Lincoln, down to the southeast, out to the Riverland, through my charity and through the last 5 or 6 weeks of this campaign, and spoken to the people on the street to see what their issues are, and what their real issues are, and what the farmers' issues are, and the horrendous growth of suicide right throughout South Australia, but especially in those regions. Been lucky enough to be invited to the APY lands to discuss the Indigenous issues. Haven't quite made it. There's been issues at the APY lands that stop that, but I'd love to get there and speak to them and find out what their issues are. So I'm here for all of us, for those, and largely not for those at that end. They can look after themselves to a degree, and I know that might not be popular, but I'm here to look after the middle South Australia that aren't getting a fair go, that need a fair go, that we should respect and honour, and our veterans are one of those. I go to a lot of RSL clubs and speak to vets who are completely disillusioned. They put their lives on the line for us, and are we paying them the respect they deserve? So, yes, my time is up, I've got to go, I'll speak later, but thank you for your time, and thank you for your patience during today, because I'm a novice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. So our next question is a 1-minute answer. Yesterday, over 50 organisations in this sector published a statement on funding. It was about highlighting the loss of value of funding in recent years and calling for a funding boost and adequate indexation. Our question to all of you is, what will you do to ensure that the community services sector is adequately funded and that the indexation formula covers cost increases? Tammy, we're going to start with you. No? The only one without a microphone.
Well, also somebody who came from the community sector, not just the Mental Health Coalition, but also the YWCA. This is an issue near and dear to my heart. I was wearing that little green ribbon, fighting for portable long service leave probably 15 years ago, and that's great that we finally got it, but it's not funded. And we have the continued short-term contracts expecting the community sector to do what the public sector used to do for less money, on less certainty, with less secure conditions. That cannot go on. It's a false economy. And the one thing that I've done just recently to stop, for example, labour hire being used in the public sector, which also impacts on this because it's paying those lower wages for the same work, is make the government report on it. I certainly will continue to champion and fight for these issues and for security, stability, and a secure and attractive community sector to do the jobs that we need doing.
Thank you very much, Melanie.
Yeah, the Greens absolutely support more funding for the services sector. We believe that the services sector is on the front line, and we want to make sure that they're able to deliver those services that are so desperately needed in our community. I think it's really shocking that South Australia has the second lowest indexation in the country, and I think we need to make sure that we're rectifying that, so we will absolutely support and make sure that that happens in the best way we can.
Thank you very much. Michelle?
Thank you. What I did when I received the email from Greg to let me know about this was I sent it straight to our Shadow Treasurer, so he's having a good look at what it all means. I can't sort of say magic wand, here you are, we're able to agree to this, but I certainly do know from working in this space for a long time that governments can't do what they do without the community sector, your essential services. And it's certainly something that I would fight for as a minister in a new Liberal government.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I'll be quick because I took up too much time last time. I 100% agree. Little Heroes has worked in that area for a long, long time, and I'll try not to refer back to that organisation, but we've witnessed it, experienced it, and we're fully supportive of it.
Thank you. Connie?
Well, this is a no-brainer. Can I just start by saying, of course, I'm not the government, and I can't do anything about that, and my role in the upper house is not to be the government. It's really to ensure that if government proposes shitty policy, we fix it. And that is what the crossbench does. We know the role that this sector plays, and of course I am supportive of what has been proposed. And if I can give you an example perhaps of how we can otherwise skin a cat when we are in the upper house, Uniting Communities would know this. There's a health committee, there was a program that was about to be axed, we invited them to that health committee. I know everyone's listening to that health committee. Letter to the minister writes back, funding is saved. And they are the other sorts of things that we can do in Parliament when you're in the upper house. But overwhelmingly, I agree with what Tammy said. These are government responsibilities that have been outsourced to you for a fraction of the price, and you're expected to do that on a shoestring budget.
Any policy announcements, Kyam?
It is true, whether you're a business, whether you're the government, a household or an NGO, costs rise, and we have seen in a lot of areas costs escalate dramatically in recent years. I know my colleague Nat Cook, the Minister for Human Services, has been very, very vocal and is agitates around the cabinet table a lot about indexation. There is a review that is currently underway in relation to indexation, but before that review started, over the last couple of budgets, I think it's about $33 million of additional funding, not for new services, but for increased indexation, has been provided for by the government, but there is that review underway at the moment.
Well, that's good to hear. Now I'm just going to, it's a bit of a rapid fire question. I'm giving you on a scale of 1, which is very unlikely, to 10, which is very likely. Could you give us your number in response to this question? Kyam, what are the chances of getting your number 5 upper house candidate, Claire Scriven, elected?
I think they're reasonably good. Look, frankly, we had 5 elected at the last election. Russell Wortley was our number 5 and was elected. As I get out and meet people on doors and make phone calls, the government has been received reasonably well for some of the stuff that we've been doing. So I'm quietly confident, and knowing Claire as well as I do, I've spent a fair bit of time in the southeast with Claire where she lives. I'm optimistic that we'll see Claire return, and she's deputy leader in the Legislative Council. And I just might note, thank you for your kind words about the Leg Code. Not all of my colleagues are as generous as you've been, but I'm optimistic.
Great. Michelle, the Liberal Party, the polls are a lot of media talk, a lot of polling around One Nation, robbing the Liberal Party of some of its votes. Given the rise of popularity of One Nation, what do you think your chances are of getting your number 3 candidate, Rowan Mumford, elected?
Look, I think there's a lot of soft votes in the electorate at the moment. So we've obviously got a really fantastic new female leader, our second leader, not even our first, in Ashton Hearn, who's a very down-to-earth, grounded, practical country girl who's been extremely well received. So, look, I'm probably a bit like Kyam. I'm optimistic that Rowan will get elected. He's Ashton's chief of staff. He started a small business in the hills. His wife's got a small business in the hills. 5 kids. Don't know how anyone does that. He's been president of the party, so he'll make a great addition to the Legislative Council if he gets there.
And for other candidates, what are your chances of getting elected? Starting with you, Chris.
I thought this was a number thing too, so Kyam's completely avoided it.
Oh yeah, what are your numbers out of 10?
I'll be
Sorry.
polite, but so to someone else.
1 out of 10? What is it?
7. As I
7?
said, optimistic.
Okay. Michelle, what number did you say? 7? Okay, Chris,
7.
what's your number?
We're all 7s. No, look, it's not my lucky number, but in all honesty, I mean, how would I know? You get around and people are so warm and friendly and communicative and happy to talk to you about their issues, which I find great. And I said on my way in that the larger panels aren't something that I'm overly comfortable with, although I've done it for 30 years. I much prefer the one-on-one, where's my sign gone? A one-on-one conversation, so I like that. If you're asking me, do I think I'll get in a 6-week campaign? No. Would I like to? The longer I'm in, the more I'd like to get in a chamber with Kyam and have a bit of fun. And I like that, and I like to fight for the voices that aren't heard. So there's got to be somebody in there fighting for somebody who doesn't have a voice. So 3. If you're asking me honestly, I'll say it's a 3.
3. Okay. What about you, Melanie?
I think we have a good chance of winning 1, but we're really campaigning to win 2 seats in the upper house. We'd really love to have balance of power and work really hard to hold the government to account, whoever that may be, although I think it's probably going to be Labor. So yes, we would love to have 2 more elected at this election, which would take us to a total of 3 in the upper house.
Tammy?
100%, 10 out of 10, it's going to be a Labor government in a landslide, which is why the upper house is important. And it's actually where I come in, because I'm pro-union, pro-choice, pro-kindness, pro-science. I actually appeal to Labor voters who want to keep their own party in check and have that balance of power on their own party to keep them true to their values. I do think that's a role that I can play, and the more that Labor increases in the poll, the better my chances get. I give myself a 3. It is possible, not probable, but possible.
Thanks, Tammy. And Connie?
I'm very humble, and I will continue to be very humble, but I always remind voters wherever I go, vote for whoever you want in the lower house. I don't care if it's Liberal, Labor, do what you want, but think very carefully before casting your vote in the upper house. And that vote belongs to you. You don't have to follow the ticket of Labor or Liberal or Greens or One Nation or Fair Go or anybody else. You get to choose who you vote for as you do in the lower house. And think very carefully before making that decision, because from where I sit in politics, and I drive Kyam nuts in Parliament in terms of getting outcomes all the time, but we are in the centre of politics, and we're not driven by ideology, and that is something that is sadly really lacking at the moment in politics around Australia. And there is always a sensible centre, there is always common ground, and there is always room for compromise. You only get that from the centre of politics.
Thank you. It's also very nice to see politicians like this, several people on a panel, to sort of understand that there is a rapport between people who are dealing with each other each day in the upper house. So thank you. Will we have a 2-minute break while you can grab a glass of water, and we'll get people organise the questions from the audience. So not a very long break, you've got 2 minutes.
Oh, hello. How are you? Good. How are you?
Sit with me?
Sit
with me?
Yeah.
Kicking ass yet?
No. How's the wheelchair? Such a good day yesterday. Good mate.
We're just going to break it down. Yeah, that's okay. I think we've just had so much to do. That's actually well, yeah, Kyam.
I didn't see that coming. Did you see that coming?
No, I just kind of.
Everyone I raised.
So, you know, when even just the meeting yesterday, when I looked away, including Carla, 3 people on that invite list that won't be there because they're going to do leadership. It's a big turnover in a short amount of time. And all that was interesting, she actually dropped in and had some request. So I'm going to talk. She struggled to keep herself in check, and it was one of the things I thought she couldn't put to the LT. I'm not sure she's been complimented enough. You know, and she's been fine. But we will get there, I'm No, I'm not too sure if my meeting is shut to go, actually, do we want to be able to do we want to find it? Could we actually go to and I was meeting with Shay or something, so I said, actually, Shay, we can shift gears, and can Patricia come with me, knowing that she respects Patricia. So, because I said I'm happy to talk to her while Patricia's there. I also want to talk to her about trying to end this because we're not
Okay, that's our very short break right now, so unless you give you a chance to say hello to the people sitting next to you. Okay, next on our list are questions from the audience. Those questions were under our special rules, submitted in advance and have been ordered so that we are directing them to a specific candidate, and this is your big chance to throw your green card. Has this been explained to you? Has Michelle got her green card? Now, if someone gets asked a question directly, Michelle, and you would like to provide a 30-second response also, throw your card in the air and you will get the opportunity, but you only get to do it once. So given the balance of questions submitted, the first questions are being addressed to the Attorney General, or former. Well, no, it's not former. What do you call it now? Current? Still current? Sorry. I should be on top of this, shouldn't I? And it's addressing party policy. So with those questions, both Kyam and Michelle will get the opportunity to answer, although other candidates can play their intervention card. So, our first is from Paz for Connie. Is that correctly? Yes, right. From Anti-Poverty Network. Would you like to ask your first question of Kyam and Michelle?
Great, thank you. While we've seen progress in recent years in tackling a huge shortfall in public housing, we know that there are still almost 14,000 applicants on the public housing waiting list, and of course a great many others out there in the community who are struggling to find stable and secure accommodation. The state government's housing roadmap shows a significant drop in the number of new public homes being built from next year. With that in mind, what are the Labor Party's future plans for tackling the substantial public housing shortfall in the state?
Yeah, thanks, Paz. I really appreciate the question. There has been significant, very significant underinvestment in public housing by governments of both persuasions this century. I think for every, apart from this term of government, for every single year of this century, except I think 2014-15, we have seen a net decline in public housing every year, and in that year was a net gain of 6. We have seen it's about over 400 public houses net gain in the last financial year. It's about 150 off the top of my head. There will be further announcements over the next few weeks in relation to public housing, but also I think it's critically important housing supply generally, making sure there's more houses for South Australians to buy. As we speak at the moment, the Premier's standing up to talk about almost $300 million investment from the state government in 2,000 more rent-to-own affordable houses, and there will be more we'll have to say over this in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks for that, Kyam. Michelle?
Thank you. Yes, so our record in government, I think when we came into office, I was facing the prospect of that in the forward estimates, 500 public housing properties had to be sold every year. That had been set into the budget, which was something I had to deal with. In our term, we managed to drop that to 150, so that by the time it got to 2022, it was 0. We don't get a lot of credit for that. A lot of housing trust tenants actually said to us, you guys really look after us, we're getting kitchens, upgrades, a whole range of things. And one of the big issues that I see at the moment with public housing has been maintenance. That's been a disaster. It's been fairly well documented. But there's a lot of vacant properties, and a lot of vacant properties which could be housing people at the moment. So a bit like Kyam, we've got more time to run on the clock before we finish all of our announcements. But those vacant homes and the maintenance is a real issue where people today could be housed.
Thank you. You got to throw it in the air, Connie. We need the drama.
All right, I think we need to have a bit of a serious conversation about this. And we know that this has been the biggest systemic failure for 20 years by consecutive governments. Why? Because the currency in politics is votes. And we look at the last 20 years in politics, we relied on the votes of the boomers. And today, mainstream voters are your X's and your Y's, the millennials. And what can't they do today? They can't afford to rent a house, they can't afford to buy a house, they can't afford to live somewhere. So all of a sudden, our policies are going back and looking at housing and making it, bringing back into the fold houses that never should have been sold off in the first place. And I think that is one thing that we don't talk about, and I genuinely mean it. Currency in politics is votes. And today, the votes of those young people are all saying, we need a house. So policy shifts back to building public housing that never should have disappeared in the first place, and we still have people living in poverty as a result.
Thanks, Connie. Our next question is from Nathan Ridney. From the... Oh, you want to throw? Do you want to throw it? Yeah, you've got to throw it in the air. That's you.
Sorry.
Otherwise, I can't see it.
Paz, I was at your gig the other week, and it was a great education for me to sit there and listen to your people speak. And there was a stat mentioned that I was unaware of and was horrified by in my own way. And Connie mentioned it, and the ladies mentioned it. Yes, I understand about the 14,000 people wanting a home. There's 40,000 vacant homes in South Australia, was the quote made on that night. So I was okay at maths, and that's an unfair number. So why, and when I said this, and I know Nicole, who looks after me and puts her hand over my mouth when I speak and say something wrong that's not politically correct, but that maths doesn't work for me. If there's 26,000 spare homes, if everybody's got a home, why can't we do it? Why don't we approach those people and say, here's a home, put your people in there, the government work out what that financial impost is on them, and they return the venue to the status that it was. But we've got the answer staring us in the face, and we just completely ignore it. I love what Connie says, but surely there's a simple answer here, and an immediate answer. The other ones are going to take years. Sorry.
Thank you very much for that, Chris. So now we have Nathan Rigney from the Aboriginal Health Council SA. Thanks, Nathan.
Hi. In a 2020 audit of the local health networks, all 9 LHNs reported very high evidence of institutionalised racism. What steps would you take as a member of the Legislative Council to eliminate institutional and systemic racism in South Australia's public healthcare system? And how will you ensure that all services are free from racism for Aboriginal people in line with the public sector anti-racism strategy?
And that question's directed to Kyam and Michelle. Would you like to start, Kyam?
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate the question. We do have a whole of government anti-racism strategy that our Commission for Public Sector Employment released out at County College. I think it was 18 months ago. It is a critically important thing to do, but it's also critically important to give Aboriginal people a choice in where they go for their health services. Aboriginal health services are funded by the Commonwealth, but we have decided that on a couple of occasions that we need to step in to fund some of those services. Yadu Health in Sejuna is now getting a new purpose-built health clinic because the state stepped in with the federal government. We regularly, when needed, Nunapa Health in the APY Land Supplement Services, so that whole of government anti-racism strategy I think is important, but it's also important to make sure there are specific services for the specific needs of Aboriginal people.
Thank you. Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, similar answer, and I'm much more familiar with how the disability action plans operate, which are a whole of government. So I assume it's a very similar thing where each agency has to have a, steps and things that it's supposed to go through, a whole process, and those actions need to be updated. And that's that progressive thing that's going to make a difference over time.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next question is from Michael Esposito and Mia Bell from the Law Society SA.
Thank you. Mia Bell from the Law Society. My question is for Connie Bonaros, and it relates to the Legislative Review Committee. We'd like to hear what you see as the role of that committee when reviewing new regulations and subordinate legislation. And secondly, what changes would you make to the Legislative Review Committee for the future?
I love this question. Can I have an hour? I moved a committee in Parliament called the Committee on Committees to look at the committee structure in South Australia. It is the most archaic and draconian committee system in the nation, behind every other jurisdiction. About 90% of laws made today are not actually being passed through Parliament. They're being done by regulation, codes and bylaws. And the Law Society knows, because I send them everything, that more and more we are seeing substantial changes and criminal penalties being put into regulations instead of legislation. That is not good lawmaking. No oversight by 69 members of Parliament in there in terms of the laws that are actually impacting us every day and being made through that process. We need a proper committee structure. We need a proper scrutiny committee in Parliament House that can actually have proper oversight of the laws that government is proposing, everyone is proposing. And if we adopted what they do at the federal level and every other jurisdiction, and I say this not lightly, we are the laughing stock of the nation when it comes to our scrutiny committee and our committee structure in South Australia. And the only reason it hasn't changed is because the government, the opposition, I will say this time around, indicated its support, but I think that the government loves having us bogged down and tied down in committees that do not get to actually consider the impact of the laws that they're proposing.
Thank you, Connie. Our next question comes from Nat Matulik from the Youth Affairs Council SA, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your surname.
My question is for Tammy. Too often our systems respond to crisis, whether in youth justice, housing or mental health, rather than investing in prevention. If you hold the balance of power, how will you use that influence to shift legislative decision making toward early intervention and long-term outcomes for young people?
This is absolutely something dear to my heart. I think whether it's early intervention in health or in child protection or in justice as well, a little bit goes a long way. I went to Homestretch presentation last week, and 108 young people in residential care are being exited at 18 with no supports beyond the age of 18 every single year. If we invested in that program, the return on investment was 3 to 1, and I think that's probably more than the car race. The children we would keep out of jail, the children we would let finish at least their year 12 and live good lives would be monumental in terms of the impact to our state. It would be such a good thing, and I will continue to fight for those particular causes.
Thank you. Our next question is from Jasmine Wisham from the Anti-Poverty Network.
Thank you. This question is for you, Chris. And firstly, I was MC at the event that you just mentioned from Anti-Poverty Network, and thank you for attending. Thank you for listening. So with that, when the government introduced reforms to improve renters' rights last year, your party's leader did not support the bill, saying it was an attack on landlords and would push landlords out of the market. And against that background, and also what you heard at our event last week, I was wondering, what would you do if elected to Parliament to support renters struggling in an unaffordable and extremely challenging landscape?
Thank you very much for the question. And as I said at the start, I'm a fast learner, so I'm educated from your event, educated by today, and more worldly by the end of this meeting than I will be before. As I said on that night, I'm a renter, so I understand completely the situation that you're in and that we're all in. I got caught in the explosion of rents a couple of years ago, just sort of during COVID, when we were appearing to get out of it, and all of a sudden rents went through the roof, and ours increased just under 50%, and just sort of left with nowhere to go. I had kids at school and trying to juggle that, so that is so important. For me, I listen to the people that know, like you, and have got suggestions for your people, and I'm your cannon. I am there to fight for you and to blast the bullets that mightn't be getting fired. So I understand it, I live it, I appreciate it, and I'm here to fight for you. You just got to load the bullets.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We now have a question from SACOSS that I will ask for SACOSS to Mel. SACOSS has called for mandatory energy efficiency standards in rental properties, and in the last Parliament the Greens introduced legislation to make that, a dramatic pause there, happen. That legislation was not passed, but will you be pursuing similar legislation in the next Parliament, or where does energy efficiency policy go from here?
Yeah, we'd love to see that bill reintroduced, and we will be doing that. So for those who don't know, what this does is make sure that renters have access to air conditioning and heating and windows that open and fly screens on their doors, so that they can have a home that they can control the energy usage with. We know so many renters are really struggling because they have little fan heaters in all of their rooms because there's no fan provided, or there's no heater provided. So we will absolutely reintroduce that bill, and we will keep campaigning to make sure that the government stands up and listens.
Okay, I have a quick 30-second each, so I know it's a big question to answer in that, but polling is showing that there is a move toward One Nation's policies. There is a lot of discussion around anti-immigration. There is more division in the community around various cultural groups. We're seeing a lot more confidence in social media from people who are making comments that previously we would have considered so racist that they wouldn't have been out there in the public realm, and that there would be repercussions. What are you going to do about that? Kyam.
I'm going to be very, very clear. There is no place for racism and division in South Australia. We are a very proud multicultural state. It has worked very well. It has served our society very, very well. You would have seen over recent weeks in particular, Premier Peter Malinauskas leaning pretty heavily into why it's important in a whole range of areas. It's important for us as a state, it's important for us as a society, and it's critical for us as an economy to have immigration as we have had for for the whole of the existence of this country. I support well-planned immigration. I support it for all of the reasons that I've mentioned, and I think it is unfortunate the tone of the debate that we are seeing sometimes in South Australia and the country at the moment.
Okay, Connie?
Watch me get fired up now. And can I say that I put out a release and tried to get some media on this issue weeks before the Premier did, just off the back of what I was hearing from marginalised communities in my office and to me personally. And when a voter says to me, someone who has supported you for 20 years in politics, that I'm not going out on election day because I'm too scared, you know there is a problem. We are sowing division and fear in our communities. And the worst lie that we are telling voters today is that we will cut migration in South Australia at this election. You cannot, we will not, and we do not have the power to touch migration laws at this state election. So stop lying to voters about what you will do and tell them what you actually can do. Cutting migration numbers, any party who is running on that mantra right now, you are lying to every person in South Australia. If you can't get voted on your own merits, then, I don't know, be decent at least. But I agree with what Kyam said. You know, there is no place for this in South Australia. We are not the other states, and we don't want that creeping into politics here in South Australia.
Thanks, Connie. Tammy?
The first and last Australians are the most vilified and othered in our nation, and we know that the politics of fear works. It gets votes, and we're watching it rise yet again. What I will do is I will stand firm for the voice, for truth and treaty and the voice. I will stand against attacks on that institution, and I will listen to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I will also lean into ensuring that we have free speech and debate that isn't racist, but I will advocate for the Jerusalem Declaration with regards to anti-Semitism and not the IHRA Declaration.
Thank you. Melanie?
Yeah, I think too often we are seeing political players using minority groups and different cultures as a football and a thing to play with in the political sphere, and it's not okay. It makes our communities less safe for so many different groups, and we don't want to see that at all. We will continue to push for more equal opportunity in our state. We will continue to push for a human rights charter, as I mentioned before, to make sure that we're actually embedding a lot of protections for people in our government departments, in our legislation, and we want to make sure that we are a free and equal state.
Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you. Yes, well, I've attended lots of events and rallies in support of people who have come to Australia, who come from a whole range of backgrounds and religions, and you know, once we here in Australia, we're all here to get along and muck in and be a bit rich of someone like me, who's a first generation Australian with a name that people sometimes can't pronounce, to have a crack at new migrants. But I also would like to say that I don't think it's an appropriate rebuttal to what's happening at the moment to say that new Australians are the ones who should be relegated to jobs in aged care, wiping people's bums, while those of us whose kids were born in Australia get the nice university qualified jobs on submarines.
Chris?
Thanks, Michelle. I'm in agreement with everybody. I'm an old Australian boy that we're all Aussies, and whether we live here or we've come here, we're Australian. We should all be getting along. We should all be respectful. In the end, it's human decency. We respect everybody. We treat everybody equally. And yes, there's always going to be a minority that are completely different. But we're all in the same boat. Let's all row it together, regardless of where we come from, and get to where we want to go. And the diversity and conflict, seriously, it's what I dislike about politics, because it seems this political things that happens in Parliament House, and we all got to fight and all got to argue and all got to disagree because that's who we are, when in reality we should be sitting down like this and having a decent discussion and fixing the problems that we claim to respect.
Thank you. Kat Morrison from SYN, you have a question for Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, the question is for Michelle and Kyam and anyone else who wants to chime in. For those who are unaware, sex work is fully criminalised in South Australia. We are the only Australian jurisdiction that still has the full criminalisation of sex work. So my question is, what strategies or policies do you or your party have in place to promote the rights of sex workers in SA? And is sex industry law reform on the agenda in 2026 and beyond?
Thanks, Kat. So this issue for most political parties is a conscience issue. As a lot of people might not know, Kat and SYN and others know, I was very active back in, I was pregnant and then I had to hand the committee, thank you, but I had to hand the committee to you. So someone initiated, no, was it me? Oh, no, there's been lots of these decrim bills. I had one of them, Tammy's had one, from lots of people. There's been so many of them. So we've tried to promote this. We had a select committee so we could aerate all the views. And when I went on mat leave, Tammy took over chairing it. So I have been in your corner for a long time, continue to be.
Thank you, Michelle. Did you want to make a comment, Kai?
Just add very brief to what, you know my views on this. Like Michelle, when this has come up, I voted in favour of calling what is work and making sure there are, at the very fundamental level, those workplace protections every other worker enjoys in South Australia. Tammy has been on this panel by far the most active of all of us in terms of progressing in the Parliament this issue. She had legislation up that didn't pass. But in this term had further legislation up. We will see revisit again, there's no doubt.
Tammy, did you want to make... Oh, Michelle? Oh, sorry. Melanie?
Yeah, the Greens remain committed to decriminalisation of the sex industry. But I also just wanted to make a point around conscience votes, because when it comes to LGBTQIA plus reforms or issues that predominantly affect women, it often comes down to a conscience vote from the major parties. So we would actually like to see them to start to take a position and take a stand on some of these issues, rather than leaving it up to the members in Parliament every time.
Thank you very much. And Tammy, did you want to make a comment about it as well?
I don't want to use my card. I think everyone knows where I stand. Sex workers work.
Fair enough. Linda Memory from Embolden.
My question is for Kyam. So it was recommended by the Royal Commission into Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence that an implementation and impact monitor be established as an accountability mechanism that's independent of government, created by legislation, with responsibility for monitoring implementation as well as the real world impacts over time. It's not entirely clear what the state government's partial acceptance of this recommendation entails, and I would like some greater clarity, please, on the approach to monitoring and how that independence will be maintained.
Yeah, but thanks very much for the question. There were 130 odd recommendations that the Domestic Sexual Family Violence Royal Commission made. The overwhelming majority of those we've accepted as a government at the end of last year. It was about $670 million of funding to back the acceptance of those recommendations. In relation to the independent monitor mechanism, I'll have to go away. I'm happy to get some information and get back to Bolton about where it is and what stage it's at and what we're looking at doing. So if you allow me to take on those, I'm happy to get back to you.
I didn't get to meet Embolden yesterday, but this is what I was going to tell you, and I will tell you when I do meet you. With the Mulligan Royal Commission, we actually had regular reporting to Parliament. I think we need 6 monthly reporting to Parliament on the DV, Family Violence and Sexual Violence Royal Commission, to keep it front of mind. And the importance of things like sex work were in that Royal Commission for further law reform, as was importance of things like libraries as a place of sanctuary and safety, to have more social workers in library to be that point of contact. All of those issues with a 6 monthly report will keep the government on their toes.
Thank you, Tammy. Simone Hunter.
I speak as an individual who belongs to a few animal
Can you use the microphone,
advocacy
please?
organisations. This is to you, Tammy. You are known for championing animal welfare, and you presented a bill to South Australia's Parliament in 2023 for an independent Office of Animal Welfare. In 2024, you moved a motion to Parliament calling for an inquiry into commercial and non-commercial killing of kangaroos and wallabies. Can you talk us through the political processes, timeframes and parliamentary climate around these significant initiatives concerning our treatment of sentient creatures?
Thank you. The inquiry into kangaroo and wallaby killing continues. It's actually been suspended in the Natural Resources Committee, which is a joint House committee of the Parliament, and that will continue in the new Parliament. That committee has also taken on a duck hunting ban reference as well, and I will continue to champion an independent Office of Animal Welfare or Animal Protection, because when you've got PIRSA, who's responsible for primary industry, or indeed the environment, making the decisions about animals, there's no one in the room who's actually there for the interests of the animals. There's the interests of industry or the interests of other parts of government, and to have better decision making, we need an independent Office of Animal Welfare advising government.
Thank you, Tammy. Nathan, you had one extra question?
Yes, thank you. Given ongoing workforce shortages and increasing compliance demands in regional and remote South Australia, will the government consider amending the Plumbing, Gas and Electrical Act 95 and associated regulations to permit qualified environmental health officers to undertake clearly defined minor plumbing work such as basic sanitary fixture replacement or non-structural drainage adjustments, where this would improve public health outcomes without compromising safety standards?
And who is that for?
For Kyam, thanks.
That's not an issue that's been raised. We're happy to have a look at it. With these things, you need to balance the integrity of having regulatory regimes or those sorts of professional services, particularly things like gas fitting, where the consequences of getting it wrong can be quite dire, but we'll take that on board and have a look.
Thank you. Now, we are going to have a concluding round, which is related to state election and federal election campaigning. Most parties like to dream up a slogan that you hear said over and over and over again. Us media representatives hear it many, many times, and you'll see it in your pamphlets dropped into your letterbox and so on. We had a quick brainstorm in the office before I left. We had a few, the Liberals this year, is that new priorities, better, brighter future? You're for the future? Absolutely. Who's for the future? Do you have one, Connie? Anyway, some of the others that we have had in the past, jobs and growth, vote Labor like your life depends on it. I think that could have been related to ramping at the time. Building Australia's future, there was the Stop the Boats campaign. Get Australia back on track, a future for us all. Clive Palmer's Make Australia Great Again. And of course the very famous Kevin 07 campaign that one of our reporters remembers distinctly, that everyone in her, was it primary school or high school? Primary, that was well on board with that one. So if you could come up with your own personal campaign slogan, 3 or 4 word slogan or tagline, what would it be? Kyam, I know that you are for the future, but...
Decency and respect. I think they're pretty fundamental things, and if everybody involved in what we do held those and treated each other like it, I think it would be a much better workplace for what we do, but better outcomes for South Australians.
Thank you. Connie?
For you, not them. I keep saying that I get the job done, but every time I do that, and everything that I do in politics is driven by people and what they need, and not by political ideologies or party politics. And I think that is what is severely lacking in all parliaments at the moment. I said I'm from the centre of politics, And everything that I do is based on what people bring in. I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert on anything. No politician is. But there are lots of experts out there and community organisations and peak bodies who are the experts. And their voices need to be heard in all the debates we have in Parliament House. That is the single biggest thing that I have just tried to do over the last 8 years and will continue to do into the future.
Thanks, Connie. Tammy?
Here's one I prepared earlier. Keep power honest. Democracy works best when power is held to account.
Is that a matching badge you have as well?
It is indeed a matching badge. It is all pink and yellow, a little bit of purple. Democracy does work best when power is held to account, whether that power is, of course, the landslide of Labor in the lower house, or indeed groups like SACOSS, who use their influence to get their way far too often.
Ouch. Melanie.
Yes, I also have props. There we go. Living in SA shouldn't cost you the earth. So that really speaks to the two priorities that we have, one of which is making sure that we're addressing the cost of living crisis and making life easier for people, but also making sure we're protecting our planet and looking after the environment and addressing climate change. So it really encompasses all of that.
Thank you. Michelle?
I'd say the right priorities and competence and integrity. Look, I think there can be a bit of a tendency for various political parties to think that government has a magic pudding somewhere where it can just keep raiding money from. I'm quite shocked actually at some of the dollar figures that Labor's throwing around when we all know that the budget just isn't there. And, you know, governments are there to provide for the people who are most needy, whether it's direct funding to your organisations or hospitals, schools, police and those sorts of things. So a lot of these events are lovely things to have if you've got lots of money sloshing around, but if you can't get the essentials right, you've got to have the right priorities as a government to make sure that you're doing the things that our most vulnerable people need.
Thank you. Chris?
Mine will be brief. You asked for brief, and from the cheap seats, we've just got 5 encyclopedias of what they stand for. I stand for a fair go. Fair go for all Australians. That simple.
Thank you, Chris. Well, I would like to thank you all so much. I've really appreciated hearing your responses and to see you all thinking so deeply about the future of South Australia. It's really important, obviously, to us to have an engaged community that really thinks about who they're going to be voting for at the polling booth, because that is what shapes our future in the States. So thank you all so much for taking the time. It's been great to hear all the responses, and thank you to everyone who's put the questions in. Now I hand over to Jeremy Brown, our CEO of Uniting Communities.
Thank you very much, and if I haven't had a chance to meet you before, I am Jeremy, Chief Executive at Uniting Communities, and we're proud to support more than 80,000 South Australians every year in areas like homelessness, disability, alcohol and other drug support, legal assistance, family and domestic violence, and very proud to be part of today's session. I'd like to thank all of you for attending today, and our sincere thank you to all of our panellists today for sharing their insights and perspectives and willingness to engage constructively, and I think should all be commended on something that they had in common today, which is that commitment to share respect and celebrate diversity in our community. Thank you to the Honourable Kyam, Maher, Honourable Michelle Lensink, Honourable Connie Bonaros, Honourable Tammy Franks, Chris McDermott and Melanie Selwood today. Thank you. And I'd just also like to thank our partner Belinda and the InDaily team for supporting us with this event, and of course SACOSS and this wonderful venue partner that we have here in the Exchange today as well. So today certainly reinforced the importance of the Legislative Council in our state, that its composition and influence has the ability to make such an impact for South Australians. We hope today has given everybody who's attended a clearer sense of the priorities and their candidates, how they see their role, and what the opportunities are for collaboration across our society. These conversations matter, and they help to build a stronger and shared understanding of all the issues facing South Australians. And I thank all of you for attending today. Thank you.